As a matter of fact, the trade tariffs that has taken place recently has created mayhem not only on the global scene, but also if you're going to zoom in, also in all kinds of the trade supply chain. In our field, if we're going to look at it from a technology point of view, it will be impacting everything that is related to data centers, cloud computing, even Bitcoin mining, and AI. Why is that? Because if we look at the sources that are used, in the data centers and or for the AI, all of these are imported from China. Has it been the rare earth metals? Has it been the chips, or even the servers themselves? So these are going to be highly impacted, although Mr. Trump has given a waiver for the technology for the time being, but you can imagine the lack of security and the confusion and the disruption is going to happen in the industry, whether there are tariffs or no tariffs. So this is at one part if we're going to look at it per se. If we're going to look at all the industry in general, we're going to be having challenges in the routers and the routing of the trade, because the supply chain is going to be completely distracted. We're going to have different routes. This is going to impact the insurance industry. And of course, this is going to be an open opportunity for the illicit money to flow, because they're going to use, all these holes in this mayhem, to have under-invoicing, over-invoicing, different routes. Even they're going to be evading, taxes and or changing the sources. So we're going to have a huge impact, not only from the industry point of view, and even, and the illicit money that's going to be flowing thanks to the mayhem that's taking place in the trade tariffs, in my point of view. Well, as a matter of fact, GCC is part of the global financial industry. And GCC is working very hard to be a part and parcel of the global financial industry. And not being just a service center in the financial industry, they're trying all the time to meet all the regulatory requirements. Has it been from FATF requirements to be all the time whitelisted, to meet all the regulatory requirements, not only in FATF, but also in combating financial terrorism. Naturally, this part of the world, as most of the other parts, depends on two pillars that are very important for the economy here. One of them is related to trade, and the other one is related to remittances. Naturally, the remittances, the inflows and outflows, and recently in the UAE, we are witnessing a huge inflow in addition to the outflow in remittances, thanks to the investments that are taking place. But on the other pillar that we are thinking, for the economy in this part of the world is trade. And this is where, all the banks in this part of the world are working very hard to be part, of the global financial industry, either in meeting the regulatory requirements and or even following up all the technological requirements to be digitally transformed to meet all the requirements, and also not only part of the regulatory requirements in this part of the world, but also the global. For example, since they are dealing with European banks, they have to be DORA compliant. Since there are lots of fintechs here and they are dealing, with banks that are outside and or with third parties, they have to be DORA compliant. So this is one part of it. Now, looking at it for the next couple of years, GCC, and if we're going to talk about UAE and even in Saudi Arabia, who has been ahead in this part, they are meeting all the digital transformation continuously, and they are on par with the global entities in meeting the regulations and combating the financial terrorism. Has it been FATF requirements and or being compliant in combating money laundering? When we look at the financial crime globally, there are around $2 trillion of illicit money that is going around the world. And this represents 2% of the global GDP. And this is according, of course, to the United Nations. And these $2 trillion of illicit money based from the organized crime and the challenge that it is growing. And of course, Eastnets, our purpose as a company is to help banks and to help communities for a better, secure and safe world. And of course, in order to be part of this safe and secure world, we have to work, in our core competencies, which is offering financial tools to the banks to combat financial terrorism and to combat money laundering and, of course, fraudulent activities. Eastnets has been developing best of the industry products, and we have been ranked by the analysts as leaders in the industry. And our products that we have been developing, they meet not only the latest technological requirements, but also we are continuously enhancing. So like this, we can reduce the false positives, we can have better tools, for example, in predictive analytics, we can have better tools in machine learning. So like this, we can help the bankers to trace any anomalies that take place in their operations and to be highly compliant, so they can help their communities and help and be, of course, highly vigilant against any illicit money that takes place either locally and part of the global combating of financial terrorism. So Eastnets has been developing products that have AI nowadays. We have blockchain, and of course, with the AI tools that we are having, we are working very hard to reduce the false positives. So like this, the bankers can focus on other offerings to their banks and to their customers and the communities that they work in. Yes, the traditional way of combating financial terrorism, it is no more sufficient, because the rule-based is no more sufficient. Of course, either it is related that the criminals themselves are using more sophisticated tools, so the bankers have also to be compliant and to be able to meet all these challenges that they are facing from the criminal organizations. This is one. On the other hand, the requirements that are in the industry are huge. And because the requirements in the industry are huge, Eastnets have to help the banks meet these requirements. For example, when we are talking about instant payments that is taking place in this part of the world and even in Europe. Instant payment, this requires that banks should be able to transfer money within 10 seconds from one party to the other party. Of course, in order to send this money, the bank has to have tools, to combat any fraudulent activity. As you are aware, that recently there have been a huge fraudulent activities that took place on instant payments in Europe and mainly in the UK. So this is where, we have developed tools to help the banks, use machine learning, so immediately we can combat any fraudulent activity that happens either online or happens, like phishing emails, etc., etc. So this is one part of how we can combat fraudulent activity, and we use the latest tools in machine learning. On the other hand, in AI, whatever we are using, either we are using it in sanctions training, this is to help reduce false positives, and or we are using it in money laundering, so we can help the banks in predictive analytics. So like this, they can tell if this is a normal transaction or something that is abnormal. So like this, the bank can all the time, look at whatever is taking place. In addition to that, with the tools that we have developed recently and we are using, it helps the banks to know who are the ultimate beneficiary owners, since this is a requirement by FATF. So, there isn't a hidden relationship, and this is where our softwares can unmask or uncover any hidden relationship. So this is what we are using in our softwares to combat financial crime and financial terrorism. When we started in our journey to combat financial terrorism and to help banks, meet regulatory requirements, has it been to meet the OFAC requirements or the Treasury requirements and or the United Nations requirements to combat politically exposed people, to find out the politically exposed people. We found out that combating financial terrorism on its own is not sufficient, to cover all the spectrum of the compliance requirements in any country or in any bank. And this is where, Eastnets started developing other products that are more related to combat money laundering according to the FATF requirements and or to combat fraudulent activities that are online. Recently, we have added additionally to that the trade-based money laundering, because we believe that there is a huge illicit money that is flowing through trade activities, especially with under-invoicing, over-invoicing, the dual-used goods, and even from vessel tracking point of view. So this is where we thought, okay, these are vertical offerings that we offer to the banks. Why not we put them on a platform? And this is now, we are finalizing a platform that is a user case management. So like this, we encompass all of these products together. So like this, any bank, they want any of the above products at any time, and or they want a product from a third party, immediately it can be plugged in. So this is where we are creating a platform. And also, in addition to that, we are working very hard, on moving these, on a cloud, because as you know, in the industry, it is not internet, then it is the cloud, and now it's heading to the AI. So now we are moving everything on a cloud. So like this, we can give access also to small banks and or fintechs to access and to reduce the cost of ownership, so they can focus on their core competencies. As I said earlier, the GCC banks are part of the global financial community. And of course, the global GCC banks nowadays, they are not serving one kind of an industry, which is related to the oil industry. The GCC banks now, they are becoming banks that are offering things that are related to services, things that are related to trade, wealth management, and even they are becoming part of the global financial community. Because this part of the world is becoming a hub and spoke, of course they have to meet all the regulatory requirements. So we at Eastnets, we have worked in this part of the world and in other areas, because we have a global footprint. We have worked through our colleagues and with our customers, the banks who are our partners. As a matter of fact, we have worked on making all these banks meet the ISO 222 deadline, which is going to be towards the end of the year. So this is where we have worked with so many banks in this part to put them and to make them ready for ISO 222. The best part of this ISO 222, it will create, a better digital transformation for the banks, because it will give them rich data, and with this rich data, bankers can have a better access to more information, so they can focus on what products they want to deliver, what offerings they want to have, and so on. Yeah, as you know, the Privacy Act started in Europe, and there are lots of countries that they wanted to have their own privacy acts. In Europe, they had, for example, the GDPR. This is from a Privacy Act point of view. Nowadays, they have the DORA, which is more or less a Privacy Act, but for cyber resiliency. Yeah, so we at Eastnets, although originally when we started in 2003 by creating the first service bureau, Swift Service Bureau, out of Dubai to service the GCC and other countries, we have realized the importance of meeting requirements per country. Nowadays, with the vision of 2030 in Saudi Arabia and the growth that we are witnessing there, and a huge fintech growth in Saudi Arabia, and the need for these fintechs to be part of the financial industry, we have created a Swift Service Bureau in Saudi Arabia. By creating this Swift Service Bureau, we are helping the fintechs and small banks to outsource their financial messaging and to connect to the global financial world, by becoming a member in Swift Service Bureau through our Service Bureau in Saudi Arabia. Because of the trend nowadays, this is where we have started to outsource it on a Google cloud. So this is where our Service Bureau in Saudi Arabia is going to be on Google. This is on par what we have done earlier in the USA, because a couple of years ago we have migrated all of our Swift Service Bureau from a data center to Azure. So this is where we have found out that this is a good way, to help banks to outsource their financial messaging with a good return on investment. It all depends, what mandates we're going to be talking. There are mandates that are by the regulators. There are mandates that are related to cutover. There are mandates related, that banks, they have to comply themselves, because these compliance requirements will help them focus on better delivery and better service to their customers. So if we're going to talk about mandates that are related to mandates by regulators and cutovers, we are talking about DORA. We are talking about DORA that has taken place by January 2025. We are talking about ISO 222 that's going to be by November this year, I suppose. And of course, there are other requirements like the CSP from a security point of view, and others. So we have been working closely with our partners, these are the banks, to help them meet these requirements, either by working with them as consultants, and or by giving them the right tools, so they can meet either the cutover dates and or the mandates. Of course, there are other parts that are related to CSP, which is related to Swift security. This is where we have certified engineers that can also help the banks meet these requirements from cutovers. So in a totality, when we talk about it, again, since our purpose is for a secure and safe world, and this has been our mission since 2003. This is where, we continue to train our colleagues here at the company, and at the same time to extend this knowledge that we have to our partners, which are our clients in the industry.